I just moved my boat from the slip I was in back to my old slip, the original slip, when I first moved in this marina. And the reason I moved was originally I moved to this slip that I'm in right now. This is my old slip. And the harbor master, I told, originally my boat was 51 feet overall. And I couldn't find a 50-foot slip anywhere because the marina I was in, San Leandro Marina, was closing and I had to get out of there. So I couldn't find a 50-foot slip anywhere. I mean, I looked all through the Bay Area. I started up and down the coast of California. I looked from Mexico to Canada trying to find a slip for this boat. I mean, it was like almost impossible. And of course, I didn't really want to move that far. I wanted to stay in the Bay Area. So I thought I was going to lose my boat because the city of San Leandro said if I didn't get it out by, I think it was January 9th, 2022, that if my boat was in there at that point, it would be considered abandoned and they were going to just take my boat and scrap it. So, or sell it or whatever they're going to do with it. But I had to get out of there. So my back was against the wall and I was just really going through it, stressing over it because it's my home. And so I come up with an idea on how to shorten my boat. So what I did was it had a davits on the back, which hold a dinghy, a small boat, over the back of my boat. And then my boat's ketch rigged, so it has two masts. It's got a main mast and a mizzen mast in the back. And the mizzen boom hung over the back of the boat several feet. So what I did was I removed the davits, removed the dinghy off the back, and I lifted up the mizzen boom like this and shortened my boat down to 46 feet. And so luckily this marina I'm in now, they had a 44-foot slip available. And when I called them, I said, I need a 46-foot slip. And they said, well, we don't have 46-foot slips. There's none here. And so so I was just didn't know what to do. So I decided to just go on down to the marina office here in this marina and talk to the people in there. And the girl at the desk said, we can put you in a 44-foot slip. You'll overhang by 2 feet, but we can do that. And so I was like, yeah, great, please. And so that's what they did. They put me in a 44-foot slip. And the harbor master goes, we'll try to find you a bigger slip in the future. Well, they did. So it was a 48-foot slip. And I need to put solar panels on this boat. I have them. I just haven't figured out how exactly I want to put them on this boat. And so I come up with an idea. And unfortunately, it would extend the length of my boat out because the solar panels would be hanging out past the end of my boat. And I thought, okay, 48 feet, 48-foot slip with the solar panels, that should work. I should still be okay. And so I moved over to a 48-foot slip. And I was there for a year. And there was a boat next to me. And the marina here does not like putting liveaboards next to each other, which makes a lot of sense. I've been a liveaboard now for 18 years, and having a liveaboard right next to you is not good. So the next door neighbor wanted to live on his boat right next to me. And so I asked the harbor master, well, can you move him to another slip? And she goes, we don't have any other slips available. And so he moved in, and I was like, every night I had to tiptoe around worrying I was going to make noise and bothering. And I didn't want him making noise and bothering me at night. And so I just decided my old slip was still open. So I decided, well, I'll just move back to my old slip. And so the harbor master okayed that. So I went ahead and I just moved my boat back to my old slip. And I've come up with another idea with my solar panels. It's different, but I think it's going to work because I can still keep my boat at 46 feet, which is a good thing. Because if I do move to another marina, you pay more by the length of your boat. So that's why I moved back. And so now I'm back here in the old slip. And so now I ran the engine, I motored around, took a little cruise up the channel. A friend of mine went with me, Caesar. And so yesterday, when we moved the boat, I let him steer for a while. So that was the first time he ever drove a boat. And that was pretty cool, and pretty lucky guy. First time he ever drives a boat. He drives a 46-foot sailboat, so that was cool. And he had a blast, and so did I. And so now what I'm going to do, I didn't have time last night when we got in. We wanted to go out to dinner. I want to take him out to dinner for helping me move. So now I'm going to flush fresh water through the engine. The previous owner has this boat set up so you can do that. There's 2 heat exchangers, one for the cooling system for the engine and one for the cooling system for the transmission. And a lot of boats, the heat exchangers have zincs in them, sacrificial zincs, and to prevent corrosion. And this boat does not have zincs. So some boats do, some boats don't. There's boat mechanics that say zincs in your heat exchangers not really good because they deteriorate so fast, and then you just got a bunch of crumbs floating around in your water system. I guess the reason the previous owner set this up like he did was to run fresh water from the dock through a hose in through the engine cooling system to flush out the salt water. So he's always done it, so I'm continuing the practice. I don't know how important it is. I've known boat owners that have boats that have absolutely no zincs in the engine cooling system, and they've never have problems with it. So so at any rate, and they don't run fresh water through the system, but I'm going to go ahead because he has it set up to do so, and I always do. I'm going to go ahead and run some fresh water through, and so this is how he has it set up. So you can see down there's a couple of hoses, and there's a small garden hose. The green hose connected to a valve, and it's that silver thing sticking up. It goes up under the deck a little bit, so you can't really see the handle. And then it goes through a T, and then you can see a yellow handle down there. That's to open up the valve from under the boat, which lets salt water in to cool the engine when you're running the engine. So you're going to run salt water through the engine. And the bigger hose is part of the main cooling system for the engine. So the green smaller hose, the garden hose, is just to run fresh water through the system. So what I do is I shut the yellow valve off, and I'll shut the seawater off completely, and I'll turn the garden hose on and run fresh water through the engine instead of salt water for a while. So I just run it for a few minutes and just flush it out, and then I shut the engine down, and then the engine can now sit without any salt water in the engine. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Now I got to be careful because whenever I do this, and I've done it several times, if I get the water pressure too high in the garden hose coming into the engine, I have a strainer right here, and this strainer is basically what it does is it just filters out any debris from the salt water coming into the boat, because you'll have on the bottom of your boat, you'll have some usually seagrass growing, a little seagrass and stuff, and things growing around where the water comes into the boat. So when you or anything floating in the water, so any debris in the water, the salt water, the seawater, gets filtered out through the strainer. Now, if I turn the garden hose up too high with too much pressure, it blows this cap off the strainer, and the water goes all over my engine. And when the engine's real hot, that's not good. It could crack something. You have hot metal and you pour cold water on it, it can damage it. So I just got to be careful with the water pressure, but I got to have enough pressure, enough water running through the system to make sure that the engine stays cool while I'm doing this. Otherwise, the engine could overheat, and that could cause damage. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to flush out the system. So right now I have the saltwater valve turned on. So I'm going to run salt water through the engine first. And then as it's running, I'll slowly shut the saltwater valve off, the yellow valve off, and then I'll turn the garden hose valve on, and I'll have to watch the strainer here to make sure I don't blow the top off while I'm doing that. And then I just run it for a few minutes. Okay, yesterday when I started the engine, I hadn't run it in like 6 months. And so what I was going to do when I started it was I was going to go ahead and just take the key, don't activate the glow plugs. I was just going to bump the engine, just like little bump to get a little oil up in the top end of the engine. And when I went to bump it, this engine just fired right up. Sitting 6 months, no glow plugs. This engine's awesome. So I'm just going to go ahead and start it. I'll probably use the glow plugs a little bit here, even though I really probably don't need to. Give a few seconds on the glow plugs to heat the combustion chambers. And I'm going to start it up. There we go. That easy. So now I got to check, go out and check and see if water's going through the exhaust. I can't see it from the cockpit, unfortunately. And water's going through the exhaust just like it should. And I'm running in neutral right now. And it's not good to run a diesel engine without a load on it. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it into gear, and the prop will spin. That'll put a load on the engine, and the boat is secured, tied to the dock, so it won't go anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and throttle it up a little bit, kick it into gear, and let it run and warm up, and then I'm going to flush it out. And you can see the prop wash coming out of the back of the boat. That means the prop is spinning. Okay, that looks good. It's the prop is spinning. You can see the water moving behind the boat. So I have it in forward, and it sounds good. And no smoke, which is really nice. I think if I throttle it up, I get maybe a little blue smoke. But actually, this looks really good. I don't see any smoke at all. So I may throttle it up a little bit for a minute just to see if I see any smoke coming out, but I'm just going to let it warm up first. I was getting blue smoke in the past. Yesterday I was getting some blue smoke. It almost looked like white smoke, which really bothered me. Nothing's worse than white smoke on a diesel engine. That usually means you have a water leak somewhere inside internally in the engine, which could be like a blown head gasket. It could be a cracked head or a cracked block. A head gasket is one thing. That's not too serious. It's a little bit of a pain to replace, but a cracked head is real serious, and a cracked block is might as well just throw the engine away. So, but I don't see any smoke at all. So this is looking good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and throttle it up. I don't see any smoke. I'm running it at 2,000 RPM. The oil pressure is really good. It's up good. And the temperature's getting up to temperature. It usually runs around 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So all of this looks good. The engine's running great. Sounds good. I don't see any smoke. I'm going to go ahead and walk around and check again. Okay, that looks really good. I don't see any smoke at all. And no smoke, and yeah, it looks good. Great. Okay, I throttled it back down. I'm running it at about 900 RPM. Oil pressure is good. Water temperature is normal. And I don't know if you can see the little red light flashing on and off, but that means that the alternator is charging. So everything's going good. So I'm going to hook up the garden hose and then slowly switch over to fresh water. Okay, you can see salt water going through the strainer. I'm going to go ahead and switch these valves now. Okay, I'm going to turn the fresh water on, the hose. I'm going to slowly turn the salt water off. Okay, so I got the fresh water now running into from the garden hose from the dock running into the system. The salt water is shut off. And I have water going through. So now we're going to go out and look at the exhaust. Okay, now that's fresh water running through the exhaust system. So that's plenty of water to keep the engine cool. And I think this is the first time I did this without blowing the top off of the strainer, because that's usually what happens. So I kind of got it down now on how to do it. I've done it several times. It seems like every time I blew the top off the strainer. The previous owner didn't have a strainer, so he didn't have that problem, but there's kind of where the water comes in under the water line right over here. It kind of has a strainer built onto the bottom of the boat. But I wanted extra protection. I wanted to make sure that that nothing got into the cooling system and clogged it up. So that's why I added that strainer that's inside the boat above the engine. So now I just let this run for a few minutes and flush it out. So it's just running fresh water through and cleaning out the salt water through the cooling system of the engine. And then I'll shut it down. What I'll do is I shut the engine off, and then I turn the fresh water off. I leave the sea water shut off, and so now the engine, when it sits, will only have fresh water in it. Okay, so you can see here, the white hose is the hose going to my dock box over there. There's a water spigot over there, and I hook it to this green hose, and this green hose is the hose that goes inside the boat and into that T, into the cooling system. So the previous owner put this green hose in here, and it just goes down inside this storage compartment under the cockpit. And so that's how I get the water in, the fresh water into the engine. So I'm going to go ahead. I think it's probably run long enough now. It's pretty flushed out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and shut her down. I'm going to throttle her back, put her in neutral. Okay, she's in neutral now. Okay, I'm going to shut her down. There we go. Now I go shut the water off, but I think I just popped the top off of the... Okay, it seems like I always screw up. I don't know if you can see drips of water coming out, but you want to shut the engine down. The engine stops taking on water, and it blew the top off of the strainer here. So that's why you can see water dripping there, and it got down onto my exhaust system. I don't think it caused any damage, but I got a little water down in there, and you can see this thing is loose now and full of water. And there's a little debris in there. You can see the seagrass down in there. That happened yesterday when I started it up, because it had been sitting, and there was the bottom of the boat had some seagrass on it. So I'm going to pull the strainer out and clean this out. And you can see it's got a gasket here. I don't want to drop that gasket down in the bilge. And so what I'm going to do is I got to go shut the water off at the dock, and I'm going to clean this strainer out. It's got the seagrass in here. Seems like every time I do this, I blow this damn strainer off. So I still got to get it down to where I can do this without doing that. And what I should have done was shut the water off here first, and then shut the engine off. And that's all I would have had to have done. So, okay, so here's the strainer, and you can see the debris inside the strainer. And the previous owner did not have a strainer on the system. Only the external strainer outside on the hull. It's just a screen where the water comes in, the salt water comes in to cool the engine. And so if I hadn't put this strainer in the boat, this stuff would have went into my heat exchanger. And you get too much in there, it's going to clog up the system. So yeah, it's and it'll run through the impeller, it'll run through the whole system, get into your heat exchanger, and it can cause a problem. And so it's mostly seagrass. Looks like a few little sea creatures that was on the bottom of my boat there, but in the grass. But yeah, so it's a good idea to always have a strainer in your cooling system. I would never ever recommend not having one. So I'm going to go ahead and wash this out now with the hose and clean it out, put it back together, and it'll be all good. Okay, the strainer's back on. And so yesterday, when I started the engine, like I said, I hadn't run it in like 6 months. I just turned on the yellow valve, saltwater valve, and went and started the engine, and it started right up. Like I said, I was going to just bump it to get some oil up in the top end of the engine. I wasn't going to start it. I was just going to bump it. And when I went to bump it, the engine just started right up. No glow plugs. I didn't activate the glow plugs. It had been sitting for 6 months, and I mean, it just fired right up. So that's a really good sign. So the engine had been rebuilt just before I bought the boat. It only had 500 hours on it. And so it doesn't have a whole lot of hours. It's still around 500, a little over, probably under 6. Let me see if I can see the hour gauge. So that's the hour gauge, and it has 538 hours. So this engine's like barely broke in after being rebuilt. So it's like having a brand new engine in here. And so it's a Perkins 4108 engine, and they've been around a long time. One good thing about this engine is that I should be able to get parts for it anywhere in the world. So that's one good thing about it. So when I started the engine up yesterday, and it had, like I said, it had been sitting 6 months, it started right up. So I was running it, had it in neutral, and the first thing I like to do is check to make sure that water is going through the cooling system and coming out the exhaust in the back of the boat outside. So I ran out there, and the engine was running, exhaust was coming out, but water was not. So water was not going through the cooling system, even though I had the valve turned on down there. It's still, there was not any water going through, and it was freaking me out. I didn't know what was going on. I thought maybe the impeller in the front of the engine, there's an impeller, which is the pump that pumps water through the cooling system, and they wear out and you have to replace them. And but this impeller had been working great, and so I was wondering maybe there's the impeller might need to be replaced because no water was going through the engine, and I can't keep running the engine like that because it'll overheat the engine and then damage it. So I had to try to figure out what the hell was going on. And so I assumed that because there's some bottom growth on the bottom of the boat, some mainly seagrass, we get it a few times a year. That's typical. And it grows on the bottom of the boat, and then it kind of goes away by itself, and then it comes back. You can clean it off. I clean the bottom of my boat occasionally, but not too often because I don't want to rub all the bottom paint off. You need to activate the bottom paint. You do that by scrubbing it, but you don't want to just keep doing it all the time because it'll just wear it off. So, so I assumed that there was grasses on the hull outside clogging the entrance of the salt water coming in to cool the engine. So what I do, when I first bought this boat, it had sat for quite a while, and I had that same problem. And what I did was I turned the garden hose, I hooked to the faucet outside on the dock with the green garden hose, and I turned this valve on for the green garden hose, and all of a sudden I heard this whoosh, and it was blowing all of the seagrass out of the outside strainer that's on the outside of the hull. It was all clogged up, covered with seagrass, and it just blew it clean. And so I assumed that was the same problem, and of course yesterday, but it did have seagrass, so there was some of that, but I still couldn't get water going through the engine, and I was like freaked out. Well, the last time I ran the engine, every time I flush it out, like I was saying, I blow this top off of the strainer here, and so I guess the last time I ran it, I didn't screw the top down tight. Well, if you don't have that sealed tight, the lid on that strainer, when the impeller runs to suck water from the ocean into the engine, if you have an air leak, it's not going to suck any water. It's just going to suck air through the system, and that's what happened. So I figured it out, and I tightened this down, and then everything was good, and I had water running through the cooling system like it should. And my friend was going to help me move the boat, and he couldn't get over here till like around 6 o'clock last night, and it's summertime. So matter of fact, today's the first day of summer. And so I wanted to take him out to this restaurant here near the marina after we moved the boat, and we needed to get over there before they closed. So, but I wanted to take him out onto the channel and go for a little ride up the channel, and because he's not been on a boat very much. And so I was in a big hurry trying to get everything going. And so I finally figured that out, and he was on his way, and I wanted to leave as soon as he got here. Well, I had another problem, and here's the other problem. So yesterday, before I even started up the engine, I just checked my steering. So I went all the way one way and all the way the other way. And so I got a lot of stuff stored down in here, which I probably shouldn't have, or I should maybe set it up to hold the stuff in place, because you can see that silver pipe down there. That's the exhaust pipe. It's the one, the straight one that goes straight through, and I got stuff piled on it. Well, it gets a little warm. It's because salt water runs through the engine to cool it and cool the exhaust. It gets warm, but it doesn't get hot enough I don't think it'll melt anything. But it's probably a good idea not to have anything sitting on that. And then the other thing is the steering here. The steering quadrant if you can see, there's a pulley down there and with cables. And when I turn the steering wheel, you can see the pulley moving. Well, I didn't open up, when I was just checking the steering, I didn't open up this hatch and look down in here and make sure that this is clear. This quadrant, if you can see it moving down there, you want to make sure nothing gets in its way, because if you lose your steering, it can lead to a disaster, especially when you're trying to park the boat in the marina. The last thing you want to do is run into your neighbor's boat because you can't steer. And so what had happened was I'd thrown a life jacket down in here, which I got several. I must have like 15 life jackets on this boat. I had a life jacket I'd thrown down in here, and you can see it's got that white webbing, that the straps on it here that you tie your body to, to hold it in. Well, the strap happened to be right down there where that pulley is, that pulley that's moving there. And as I was checking my steering, it sucked that strap into the pulley and it got caught in there. And so luckily I'd opened this hatch up and looked down in here while I was turning the steering wheel. I thought I better check and make sure there's nothing in the way. And I couldn't believe what I saw. This damn strap was just bound up in the steering, and it was all greasy because there's a little grease on that stainless steel cable for the steering. And had I not noticed that could have led to a disaster, really bad. So and I had a hell of a time. I couldn't get it out. I kept trying to pull that strap out and it wouldn't come out. So finally I turned the wheel here and backed this pulley up and pulled on the strap at the same time I turned this, and I was able to get it loose and get it out of there. And then of course the strap had grease all over it, so I just threw the life jacket in the garbage. So I got a ton of life jackets on here, and I don't need that many. I'm not planning on taking a whole lot of people out on this boat at one time. Only a couple people is what I prefer to take out. So yeah, so that's done, and all I got to do now is get that life jacket out of the way. I need to really go through and organize, maybe make some kind of shelving in here to hold stuff so it doesn't get into the quadrant. You got to remember you're out on the ocean and the boat's bucking around and moving around, and stuff moves around that you have stored, and it can if it gets in the way of your steering quadrant, you're in big trouble. So on the other side, the other hatch here, I got it's full of sails. I have 15 sails on this boat. Some of them from off my old boat, and they're a little small, but I just have them for emergency purposes. In case a sail gets torn or something, I can throw up another sail. So I had 16 sails, but I had one sitting out on the dock box in San Leandro, and somebody stole it. And it was off a different boat. I was going to maybe use it as a staysail. I was thinking about putting a staysail on this boat. This boat has 3 sails right now. And so a staysail, it's got the jib up there in the blue bag, way up in the bow of the boat. And then it's got the mainsail, which is in the blue cover there in the middle. And then it's got this mizzen back here, mizzen sail. But between the mainsail and the jib up in front, you can put another sail. You have to put a cable from partway up the mast close to the top, and it comes down. So you'll have a sail in between the jib and the mainsail, and that's called a staysail. And my other boat had a staysail. It wasn't a ketch rig. This is a ketch rig because it has 2 masts. And the mizzen mast is in front of the rudder post, which makes that a ketch. If the mizzen mast is behind the rudder post, that's a yawl. That type of rigging is called a yawl. But so this is ketch rigged, and I'd like it to be add a staysail up there in the front. But I got mixed emotions for it. They're handy because you can take the jib down, and if you're in a channel where you're tacking back and forth a lot, the staysail will be self-tending to where you don't have to mess with any lines. You just turn, and the staysail will flip over to the other side without touching anything. With the jib, you have to pull the jib around with the jib sheets, the ropes that that control the jib sail. So, but the reason I kind of not want to have a staysail is because I'm stowing my dinghy up there, that my little boat up there, the white thing up there on the front, is the I have a little 8-foot Walker Bay dinghy, and I couldn't have a staysail with a boom on it. Having a boom on it makes it self-tending, though you can have them self-tending without a boom, but it'd be the dinghy's in the way. Eventually I'm going to put solar panels on here. The dinghy used to hang off the back here. Used to hang off the back with davits, so I had these stainless steel poles that came out and they arched over the back of the boat, and then the dinghy hung over the back of the boat. But I had to shorten the boat to get into this marina because I couldn't find a 50-foot slip. With the mizzen boom down, this boat, I had put the mizzen boom up, but with the mizzen boom down, the boat's 51 feet overall. So I just couldn't find a slip big enough for this boat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put solar panels back over here. So it's going to be like a roof over the cockpit with solar panels. And then I have 10 100-watt panels, so I have 1,000 watts of solar. And but to put them up the way I wanted to, and the only way they'd really fit, they'd be hanging over the back of the boat, which would make the boat longer, and then I wouldn't be able to be in the slip. But I come up with an idea where I'm going to have 2 on each side in the back that hinge down, and so when I stow it, it'll hinge down. And then also I'm going to have the bimini that I build, which will be the roof part that goes over with the solar panels. There's going to be poles going up, kind of like that light post stern light that I put on, but it'll go up high. And then what I'm going to have is stainless steel poles that will create a davit that they'll fold in. And so what I do is I lift the solar panels that are hanging down up, I pull the davits out like this, and then the solar panels will sit on top of that. So it'll extend the boat out, and then I can put the dinghy on the back. And that's when if I leave the marina here and I'm going out. But I can fold it all back up when I come back in and shorten the boat back down real easily. So that's kind of the plan now, and we'll see if I can make that work in sometime in the future. If you found this video to be helpful or entertaining, please like and subscribe.